Phil Mickelson watches four relatives side with Rolap at tour headquarters. This isn't clickbait. It is a full-blown family fracture at the center of golf's power struggle. Four of Phil Mickelson's closest family members just walked into PGA Tour headquarters and stood with Brian Rolapp, the man who locked Phil out of the game. The new CEO drew a line in the sand, and Phil's own blood crossed it. And honestly, the pure, unadulterated irony makes you want to laugh. Regular fans are struggling to afford gas and groceries, yet these country club elites are staging a family drama over who gets to stand next to the new boss. Phil walked away with $200 million from LIV Golf, and now he watches his own relatives side with the guy who slammed the door in his face. It is a brutal reminder that in golf, loyalty only lasts as long as the paycheck does. But look past the surface drama. The real question isn't what Phil did. It's who these four people are and what made them choose Rolap over their own flesh and blood. Inside that headquarters building, something happened that changed everything. And when you find out who these four relatives are, you will never look at Phil Mickelson the same way again. Let me take you inside that room and show you exactly how this unfolded. The question isn't whether Phil deserved this, it's whether his family had any choice at all. What do you think? Tell me below. And if golf's real power struggles are what you're here for, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the full breakdown. To understand why this moment matters, you first need to understand who Brian Rolapp actually is. Because the man at the center of this chaos isn't some career golf insider. He came from outside. Rolap spent 22 years at the NFL as the chief media and business officer, negotiating billion-dollar television deals. He learned one lesson above all others in those 22 years. The product on the field means nothing if the business model behind it is broken. Golf had a broken business model. Rolap intended to fix it. When the PGA Tour came looking for a new leader in 2025, they didn't want tradition preserved. They wanted someone who would blow up the old model. They wanted Brian Rolapp. He was appointed as the PGA Tour's first ever CEO in June 2025, but didn't take full control until January 2027. 18 months to plan a complete overhaul. Rolap made one thing clear from day one. No merger with LIV Golf. No reconciliation. No backroom deals. The door was closed, and for players like Phil Mickelson, who had bet everything on LIV surviving, that was a death sentence. But the real shock came when Rolap started restructuring the tour itself. Shrink field sizes. Cut fully exempt tour cards. Create a two-tier system where only the elite get guaranteed spots. The players who had spent years grinding on the Korn Ferry Tour, who had built their lives around a PGA Tour career, they were about to lose everything. And the players revolted. Not quietly. They started speaking out in public, on the record, making the tour leadership look completely out of touch. Lucas Glover was one of the first. He called the tour's explanation insulting, said the players weren't buying it. He had seen commissioners come and go, never anything like this. He wasn't just angry, he was disgusted. Matt Fitzpatrick backed him up. The 2022 US Open champion called it pathetic that the tour kept blaming pace of play when everyone knew the real reason was money and control. Fitzpatrick isn't usually outspoken, but this time he couldn't stay silent. Sam Burns went even further. He demanded to be removed from the Pace of Play committee. He said the committee was a complete waste of his time. Glover, Fitzpatrick, and Burns were just the opening act. What happened next didn't involve any of them. It involved four people who share Phil Mickelson's last name, and their decision inside that headquarters building is about to tear golf's most famous family apart. The chaos didn't stop with the players. The real explosion came from above the PGA Tour entirely. From the two bodies that govern golf worldwide, the USGA and the R&A. Beginning in 2028, professional golfers would be required to use a ball that travels meaningfully shorter. Estimates ranged from 12 to 20 yards less in independent testing. The stated reason was course preservation. Modern players hit the ball so far that classic courses like St. Andrews and Pebble Beach were being overpowered by technology. The players' reaction was nuclear. Justin Thomas called the USGA's decision selfish. He asked whether they would make a mile longer so the fastest mile time doesn't change. Or raise the NBA hoop because players can jump higher. Perfect shot. It landed. Bryson DeChambeau called it the most atrocious, uninspiring thing you could do to golf. A complete betrayal of the players who had dedicated their lives to the sport. On the other side, Rory McIlroy publicly supported the rollback. He argued it would make almost no difference to the average golfer and would put the sport on a more sustainable path. The biggest names in the game were now split down the middle, fighting each other in public over the future of the sport. While they were arguing about a golf ball, Phil Mickelson was dealing with something far more personal. To understand what happened in that headquarters building, you have to understand the moment that triggered it all. The moment Phil Mickelson was officially shut out. In January 2026, Rolap introduced the Returning Member Program, a path back for LIV Golf defectors. But there was one catch. One brutal, unforgiving condition. Players had to have won a major championship in the past 5 years. Brooks Koepka won the 2023 PGA Championship, qualified. Bryson DeChambeau won the 2024 US Open, qualified. Jon Rahm won the 2023 Masters, qualified. Dustin Johnson won the 2020 Masters 6 years ago. He didn't qualify. Phil Mickelson won the 2021 PGA Championship. That was 6 years ago. By the time the program was announced, he was just outside the window. By 1 year. 1 single year. The media called it a brutal snub, and the message was clear. The PGA Tour was moving on without Phil Mickelson. He had made his choice and now he would live with the consequences. Phil's public response was calm. He said he wasn't interested anyway. His return would probably be on the PGA Tour Champions, the Senior Tour. But behind the scenes, sources say the snub hit him hard. Harder than anyone expected. This wasn't just about golf. It was about respect, about legacy, about being told that after 45 wins and 6 majors, he was no longer welcome in the place he helped build. That rejection would have been enough to break most people. What Phil didn't know was that the worst part hadn't even happened yet. The people who would deliver the final blow weren't in the boardroom. They were sitting at his own dinner table. So who are these 4 relatives? Let's go through them one by one, because each one tells a different story about what happened inside that building. The first is Tim Mickelson, Phil's younger brother, his longtime caddy, the man who had been by his side for some of the biggest moments of his career. Tim wasn't just a brother, he was a partner, a confidant. Tim had been on the bag for Phil's 2013 Open Championship win at Muirfield, for countless tournaments, where Phil proved he was one of the greatest ever. Their bond was built on years of shared struggle and shared success. Tim read Phil's putts at Augusta, handed him the club on the 2004 Masters final round that set up the winning birdie. 20 years of reading greens together. 20 years of trust built one shot at a time. But Tim is also a professional. As a caddy, his career depends on the PGA Tour ecosystem. Health insurance, retirement benefits, access to the best facilities. When Phil left for LIV, Tim had to choose between his brother and the system that provided for him for decades. He chose the system. He stayed. And when Rolap held his event at the new headquarters, Tim was there. Standing with the new CEO, not making a scene, just being seen, sending a message that his loyalties were no longer divided. What does this mean? It means the Mickelson family is no longer united. It means the bond between 2 brothers, forged over decades, has been strained by the choices Phil made. Tim's choice was professional. The next relative's choice was something else entirely. The second relative is Amy Mickelson, Phil's wife, the woman by his side since 1996, through every high and every low. There when he won his first Masters, and when he lost the US Open at Winged Foot. The anchor of his personal life. Amy and Phil created Birdies for the Brave together, a project that raised millions for military families. One of the most admired charity initiatives in golf. When Phil left, the question was whether the program would survive. It survived. Adopted by the PGA Tour, Amy maintained her relationship with the tour's charitable arm, continued to appear at events, continued to be the public face of the program. So when Rolap hosted his event at the new headquarters, Amy was there, not as Phil's wife, not as a supporter of his decision. She was there as an ambassador for Birdies for the Brave. She stood with Rolap. She smiled for the cameras. She represented everything Phil had left behind. What does this mean? It means the woman who has been Phil's partner for more than 25 years chose the institution over the individual. It means she separated her public identity from her private life. Amy's presence sent a shockwave through the golf world. Nothing prepared people for who was standing right next to her. The third relative is Amanda Bryn Mickelson, Phil's oldest daughter. She grew up in the shadow of her father's greatness, attended tournaments, walked the fairways, lived the Mickelson lifestyle. But Amanda is an adult with her own life, her own career, her own circle, and that circle is deeply connected to the PGA Tour establishment. Her friends, her professional contacts, her future, they all depend on the world Phil rejected. So when the event at headquarters happened, Amanda was there, standing with her mother, standing with Rolap, not as a rebel, not as a protest, just being present, being counted, being part of the new PGA Tour world. What does this mean? It means the next generation of the Mickelson family has made its choice. It means Amanda is signaling that she wants to be part of golf's future, not its past. Amanda's decision was about her future. The fourth relative's presence in that building was the most devastating of all. The fourth relative is Sophia Isabel Mickelson, Phil's younger daughter. She was a child when her father won his first major, grew up in the spotlight, knows the joy of his victories and the pain of his defeats, understands the weight of the Mickelson name. Sophia's choice wasn't about career or money. It was about identity, about whose side she wanted to be on when sides were being drawn. By standing with Rolap, by being photographed at headquarters, by publicly associating with the PGA Tour leadership, she made a statement no private conversation could undo. She chose the institution, the new order, and whether she meant it or not, she chose against her father. What does this mean? It means the Mickelson family is now divided. It means Phil is watching his closest loved ones align themselves with the man who locked him out, and it means there is no going back. 4 relatives, 4 decisions, one man standing alone, watching it all happen, powerless to stop it. But why did this happen? Why would family members turn on one of the most famous golfers in history? The answer is simpler than you might think. LIV Golf is collapsing. In 2026, the Saudi Public Investment Fund announced they would stop funding LIV after that season. No more money, no more tournaments, no more future. The players who took the Saudi money were left with nothing. No tours, no guaranteed income, no path back. Stranded. Contracts supposed to run through 2030 evaporated overnight. Agents stopped returning calls. Sponsorship deals went quiet. The players who walked away from the PGA Tour now had nowhere to walk back to. Phil's family saw this coming. They realized his boat was sinking, and if they stayed on it, they'd sink with him. So they made a choice, a brutal one, survival over loyalty. They aligned with Rolap because he represented the future, with the PGA Tour because it was still standing, with the new order because the old one was dying, and Phil watched. He stood in that building surrounded by people he had once led and watched his own family cross the floor. The man who once commanded every player's respect was now a bystander in his own life. The most painful part? They didn't even look back. So what does this all mean for Phil Mickelson? The man who once dominated the sport is now a lonely figure, watching from the sidelines. He has the money. He has the majors. He has the memories. But he no longer has the family that once stood by him. His brother chose the system. His wife chose the institution. His daughters chose the future. And Phil is left with nothing but the echo of his own decisions. He chose LIV. He chose the money, and lost everything money couldn't buy. His place in the game, his family, his legacy. Now he is a cautionary tale, a warning to every player who thinks they can walk away without consequences. A reminder that the people you love will eventually have to choose, and if you make the wrong choice, they will choose against you. The PGA Tour's new headquarters is a monument to the future. For Phil Mickelson, standing in that building, watching his family move away from him, it might as well have been his own grave. One question remains. Was this inevitable? Was Phil destined to end up alone, watching his family choose the other side? Or could he have done something different? The answer is complicated. Phil believed in LIV. He believed it was the future. He believed the PGA Tour was corrupt and outdated. He made his choice based on conviction. But conviction doesn't matter when the money runs out. Conviction doesn't matter when the tour moves on without you. Conviction doesn't matter when your family stands on the other side of the room. Phil is a victim of his own decisions. He burned bridges. He made enemies. He took the money and ran. And now the world has turned its back on him. But the family? The family made a different calculation. They saw the writing on the wall. They saw which way the wind was blowing. And they chose the side that would keep them safe. Was it betrayal? Or was it survival? That's the question every viewer has to answer for themselves. The final irony? The US Open is happening right now. The tournament Phil could never win. The major that always escaped him. And he's not there. Not playing. Not even a footnote. Instead, he's standing in a headquarters building, watching his family walk away from him. 4 relatives. 1 choice. A legacy that may never recover. That's the real story of golf's chaos. That's what happened when Phil Mickelson watched his own blood side with the man who slammed the door in his face. The question isn't whether Phil deserved this. It's whether any of us could have done it differently. And the answer, for most of us, is no. Because when the system comes for you, it doesn't just take your job, it takes your identity, your place in history, your family. And Phil Mickelson, despite all his money and all his majors, couldn't stop any of it. The only thing he could do was watch.